Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Dr. X.
oh gosh, Dr. X. How was your weekend? You did a lot of driving.
My weekend, yeah. I found out we went to the Wytheville UFO Fest, and I found out that on Wednesdays We Talk Weird had the proud distinction of being the farthest traveling attendees for this year's event.
Ooh,
Yes, so we would drive 500 miles, and then we drove 500 more, and we got to Wytheville, Virginia, and had an awesome time. But that is how much we believed in this community, this event, these people, our fellow weirdos. It was definitely worth it. Definitely worth the trouble. And no one made more of an effort to be there this weekend than on Wednesdays We Talk Weird.
more specifically, you, Pato.
Well, I mean, I'm not. There is no me, and it's Dr. X.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I forgot already. God damn it. I'll
I
never
know.
get it right.
Dude, so one of the things that I did on my way to get you, and then after dropping you off, is I revisited some of our old shows, and the two that I picked were the Smiley Face Killers episode and the Fringe Parenting episode, and both of those, like, the running gag is us trying to get used to the Dr. X moniker. Because what I didn't realize, and when we did the recap on Patreon for the World's Biggest Dick Guy, is that I forgot that the whole Dr. X thing was a response to that. Like, that's why I came up. It was that, and it was also my Snapchat had been, I kind of like accidentally doxxed by some of my coworkers, and it was nothing terrible happened, but I just realized that people were following me on Twitter that should not have been following me on Twitter, and I kind of had a freak out and wanted to try to compartmentalize my life. And it was the week after the that guy's show got pulled that we did the Smiley Face Killers, and that was when I rolled out the Dr. X thing. So
How do those old episodes hold up?
they're good. It's funny. It's like we have a lot of energy. It's a lot of like we don't do the news yet. Neither one of those we like had like a news segment. The format was still kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the end of the parenting one, like you asked me about my COVID vaccine, it was like really weird. But like it was it was definitely a lot looser, but it was good. It was good stuff. You know, I think we weren't necessarily as polished, but it wasn't, better than demo recordings, kind of like that rough first album the bands put out. Like, it was cool. And I think that I'm gonna start pushing them on Twitter as part of like Throwback Thursdays and Way Back Wednesdays and Remember That Shit Mondays or whatever. Fucking whatever the different like hashtags are. Like there's some gold to be mined in them there hills.
Like Vanderbilt Mondays.
Yeah, which just post a picture of yourself from 10 years ago. We should talk shit about him this episode because this might be the one that he actually listens to.
It might be
in preparation for him coming on next week. So we'll see. That's when we get the distinction of interviewing the man with the second largest penis in the world. Mike Vanderbilt. Interviewed by the man with the third largest penis in the world, Frank California. So
oh my gosh.
The trilogy will be complete.
I think that I think that our topics were still good. I agree. I like the format of the show now. We kind of have I'd say for about the past year, we've done pretty well with, having our shit together, but.
Right. A little more structured, but.
Sure. Still not bad.
Yeah.
Even like the first episodes with Ivy as a co-host, I tell people they're good episodes. It's not that they're bad episodes. It's just a little bit of a different show than it is now.
Oh, yeah. I used to listen to them. I mean, I don't go back and listen to them because I wasn't on them, but I listened to them when they first aired. And that was, I liked it. It was good.
It was good stuff, yeah. So,
I was a fan of the show before I'm like Jason Newsted. That's why I have no problem wearing our merch out in public and stuff when we do these events, is because
you've always been a fan of the show.
Yeah, I mean it's like if I was the bass player of Metallica, I'd still wear Metallica shirts. What the fuck? Why not? So how did you enjoy this week? How was your weekend?
It was great. It was wonderful. Yeah. I mean, so we did the UFO festival thing in Wytheville. And no, it was really fantastic. It's actually the best event that I've participated in because we were sponsors for it, and of course, we had a table for it. But it was great hearing people's stories, and there weren't too many crazy people. There were some, but I mean,
Yes.
they were all weird. One thing that I noticed, well, and I have such a hard time, and I just, God, apologize to just literally everybody that has to help me run a booth because, like, I can't fucking sit still. Like, I just I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
I got a problem with that.
It
Um,
reminded me of my old days being just sitting behind the merch booth selling T-shirts and just
yeah,
playing on my
and
phone. Whatever. It
you
was
know,
all
and,
good.
and it's hard because like people come up and like they come up and they want to talk to you and you want to talk to them because that's why you're there. But like also there's other people that you see and you're like, oh, I want to go talk to them. And it's just it's tough, So I'd come back and hang out for a little bit and leave and then come back. And then I didn't get to like hear everybody speak. I only got to hear one person speak. And but I also kind of don't like to like use my time at these events to sit in a chair and listen to one person talk without any engagement. So I don't know. That part's strange. But what I found interesting was that I would walk around and talk to people. I always do this thing where I'm like, okay, I need to go over the room. And then I'll get tied up and maybe I'll get like 2 or 3 booths in and every single, all 2 or 3 of those booths, I'm spending, 15 minutes talking to those people. And then I'm like, shit, I got to get back to my booth. And then I'll go back and then I never make it all the way around a room ever. And usually when you go to one of these events, just as a, somebody that's, just as a guest, you walk around and you see what everybody has to offer. And then you walk around again to buy shit,
Right.
And so I never make it around that second time ever. I always feel bad because I'm like, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy that. And then I don't come back and buy it. So I apologize in advance for not spending enough money. But I will not apologize for making some money. But
Which we did very well.
did all
You
right,
know,
yeah. But I will say that
the show did, not me. I grossed no income from this fucking event. I just want to say that.
no, and really
Put
I
that
didn't
out
either.
there.
It
Right.
all goes
Exactly.
right back into doing more of these events because they're
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
For now anyway, at least until we sell out of everything, which we did have some things that we sold out on, but until we're, till everybody's buying shit. So of course,
Mhm.
buy more shit goes right back into the show. But what I found interesting was that talking to all these people, the guests, even some of the vendors, a lot of people seem to be from Bristol, Virginia. So what's up with you guys, man? Are you? And I eventually at the end of the night, I asked somebody. I was like, "What's up with you guys? Are you guys just fucking weird because you were all there?" And they just kind of laughed it off, and they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe that's the spot. Maybe that's where we need to go to." But anyway, met a lot of cool people. Some of you probably listening to the show are probably from Bristol. Some of you probably only just now heard of the show because of this event or whatever. So thank you for checking the show out and listening in. It was great to meet you guys, and I'd love to hear more of your weirdo stories.
Yeah, I wanted to, when we did the event in Marietta, I made that video of where I shot some stuff and then edited it together and put an Alkaline Trio song on it, threw it up on YouTube. And I wanted to do a similar thing this time, and I filmed about half as much as I wanted to. My big takeaway from this event was that we really should bring a third person with. Because that way, like, I want to, give a shout out to Dan Blue Room Insight Show, because he was like my de facto like cameraman, where I'd be like, come here, film with me, and then we would go and we would talk to some people and shoot some stuff. But he had his own agenda, he had his own shit going on. So I mean, nothing against him. It was awesome meeting him. We had an awesome time together. I've
Sure,
new
he
new
sounds like a good
friendships
guy.
were new friendships were born. We're Snapchat buddies now. But he helped me out as much as he could, but it would have been nice to have like a dedicated other person, because like you said, like you're good, like, because you're kind of like a built-in booth girl, to where people, when you're around, like people come over, like gravitate just to like look at you and see what you're about. And I'm good because like I can talk to people and shit, but like sometimes I wanted to go like take a dump or get a walkie taco or like go film stuff, and sometimes you want to wander around or you're getting harassed by people or you're seeing one of the speakers, and it would just be nice to have like one other person there that you can be like, all right, well, Ash, or me and you are going to go film, and then this person watches the
Right.
booth, or me and the other person go film and you watch the booth or whatever. So I think definitely it's very hard to do that with two people. I don't know how you would do it by yourself. You basically wouldn't. You know what I mean? it would be nigh impossible for a single person to run a booth for a 6-hour event, for the bathroom breaks alone. But that was my big takeaway. Is probably next time we should form a little bit more of a posse and bring someone else with. And but yeah, it was a really good time, real good time.
Yeah, I mean, as weird as it is, it's tough to convince people to go to these things. And you would think that shouldn't be the case, but it is. For whatever reason, it is. You're not married to the booth. I kind of have accepted that. I'm not married to the booth, and if I miss people, I miss people. If they really want to buy the shit or they really want to talk to me, they'll come back.
Right.
And so I kind of I don't know. Like I said, I've kind of accepted that idea. But then again, I've never worked it completely on my own either, so I don't know.
I'm not married. You see, the thing about like selling the T-shirts, we were talking about this when we went to the after party. It was me and the one moth boy, not Matt, but the other one,
Mike.
and yeah, and Jeff, and who is the? You want to talk about the go to the convention? Fucking Jeff Gregg, what's up, dude? Like,
Yeah.
oh, he was the VIP in my eyes. I love that man. I'm so pissed. You know what? He was one of the guys that like I filmed a bunch of B-roll footage. Him and Danner, I filmed a bunch of B-roll footage of their booths because I had every intention of talking to them, except they always had people, they were always selling shit.
Yeah.
So it was like every time I shot a bunch of stuff with Danner's booth because he was right next to us, and I was like, all right, I even said to him, like, hey man, I'm gonna come over and interview you at some point. And I wasn't even gonna fuck with him. Him and Jeff, I was gonna be totally straight with. Everyone else, I already had pre-planned bits where I could like screw with them on camera and see what they do. But those two guys I was gonna be totally legit with. And I never got a chance to go back and film because Jeff always had people up at his booth checking his stuff out, hopefully buying stuff. And same thing with Danner, like very popular,
I
And
I got my map, my updated Hidden Ohio map, and because we're on it, and like that's really neat. So I finally got to see it. I went over.
What do you mean?
We're on the map as a he's got like a section of like not sponsors, but people he advertises on the map, and we're on there.
Holy shit! I didn't even know that.
You didn't you didn't know that? Yeah.
What a beautiful man.
I love Jeff Craig. He's like packing up. I was like helping him pack up because he gave me a ride to the brewery and for the after party, and I was like helping him pack up things, to the best of my abilities. And he was like, oh man, I wish I could find one of these carts. So he did. He found a cart. He got it off, somebody, and he comes out with his cart, and I'm outside, and he's got his big old map, and only one of those doors of the double doors were open, and he's like, looking like, how am I going to fit this through? And while I was kind of trying to figure that out, everything tumbles off the cart. I felt so bad for him. And I'm over here in my short ass dress. I can't bend over to pick nothing up.
You could have.
I guess I could have.
You chose not to, which was fine.
I grabbed his map and helped him out, and
sure.
And then he was a trooper, and he came and hung out with us at the after party, or he tried to anyway.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that he tried. So
yeah, good times.
But
it totally it gave me what I was talking about. What I was talking with those dudes at the brewery about is that it kind of this whole like movement or exercise or doing these conventions very much feels like what it was like to go on tour with a band, because it's like, look, you're doing it to make fans. You're going into these towns because you're hoping that the locals come out, and maybe you have fans in the area that are going to come out to see you specifically. But when you're just starting out band, you go on the road because you want to go to venues where like, okay, this is the punk bar in Toledo, Ohio. We're going to play it. And we're going to play with some other local bands, and hopefully there's just people there, right? And that's kind of what we did to this. This is why I drove from Chicago to Virginia, is because we knew this would be a good event. We knew it would be filled with local people. And we actually ran into somebody from the area that was a fan in the wild, and believe me, I got a camera in her fucking face as quick as I could. But like, other than that, this was a way for us to take our product and to meet people in a network. And like the t-shirt sales, yeah, like this is not like we're not, I made a Twitter post about this that people actually got a kick out of, but it's like you show up to these things, it's not like you're Gene Simmons from Kiss and you're like some like merchandising giant where like, oh, I'm going to sell all this stuff and we're millions of dollars on Wednesdays. We talk weird coffins and, it's like, you sell a couple t-shirts and, a couple stickers. And hopefully, but what I wanted to do more than anything else was to get the business cards in people's hands, right, with the QR code, so they could
Right.
go home and they could scan it and they could listen to the podcast, right?
Right.
Listen to the podcast. That's why, like, when you go on towards a band, like, you just want to play music in front of people, have them like you, and then keep tabs on you. So hopefully the next time you come through town, they bring their friends. And that is why, like, you go to these places and you go to these towns, because they're gonna, these events all are kind of in smaller communities, but they bring out hundreds of people, and
Yeah.
those hundreds of people that are interested in this stuff, they're hungry for content. You provide them with content, and then hopefully, they listen to the show, they tell their friends about it. Now you're like setting off these little, like, planting these seeds on the road, so it's
Yeah.
worth it. You can't measure it in dollar amounts, you know what I mean, or anything like that, because that's not the way to look at it. You got to look at it in exposure,
Yeah.
and connections. How many people did you connect with? Be they other vendors or just or attendees, you know what I mean, audience members. And
I think that the artists do have to look at it in a money way, but they're selling a different brand. You know what I mean? And I don't blame them for that.
right, no, I
But,
get it, yeah.
for us, the money kind of comes later on down the line. It's just a step in that direction to,
Mhm.
get there. And I agree, sometimes the exposure is a lot more rich than the actual cash money, because next time we do come out, they're going to be like, oh, that's that show I heard about the last time. And they aren't going to buy a fucking t-shirt. So it's going to happen. It's just, it's a step. I mean, it's important. And then when they come and listen to the show, well, that's money right there. So, I mean,
Right.
it all, it's all big, moving parts that all lube each other up, so
And just so the state of Illinois is clear, I don't see any of it. None of it.
just in case the state of Illinois is curious.
Yeah, do not try to text me on this shit, motherfucker, because you will not find any of it traced back to me. I'm not paying child support on it either, so fuck you.
Yeah, it was a good event. I'm definitely looking forward to doing it next year.
Oh yeah,
it's
100%.
I mean, I think it was such a good turnout. I mean, it really was. I really cannot say enough good about how well it went. It was it was very steady the whole time. Lots of people came out. Nobody knows how many, but lots of people did.
I heard a
And
motherfucker drove all the way from Chicago to go to that fucking thing.
oh, did you? You heard that?
I heard that. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what Robin was telling me.
that's crazy.
I
Wow.
know.
Who's
That's
telling you that?
Robin.
Robin was telling you that? Well, if Robin said it, then we know.
Right.
Shout out to them. Shout out to Robin and Mr. Robin for doing the event. They're great people. Really, I mean, I absolutely adore Robin and Brian, so I always have. But they run Mystic Novelty Co. and they make all kinds of really neat stuff. And usually, every event that they do, not just that they host. I think this is the first time they've ever hosted one, and this has opened up a whole door of opportunities for them, which is awesome because they deserve it.
Yeah.
But every event that they vend at, they have like an exclusive item, and so far I have gotten that item every single time. Every single time. This time it was the coin, which we
Yeah.
got. But other times it's been other things that they sell all kinds of stuff. But my daughter actually uses their soap. She's using the Grafton Monster soap now. So anyway, check them out. They're wonderful people that deserve all the support in the world. And there has been a, weird confusion over what Robin's husband's name is, kind of. Actually, there was confusion about what both of their names are, but their names are Robin and Brian, for the record. That's what they are. I just wanted to mention that for anybody else that was confused, because I certainly was for a very long time. So, anyway,
No longer an unsolved mystery.
no longer an unsolved mystery. That is a case that we have officially solved.
See,
So,
the truth is out there. You just gotta look for it.
you just got to sometimes approach people and just straight up ask them. Yeah.
What's your name? What's your real name?
It felt bad. I think Robin thought I didn't know her name at all, but I did. And I was like, hey, what the fuck are you guys' names? I knew hers and I knew Brian's, but I didn't know Brian's because somebody else had told me, did you know his name's not Brian? It's Will. And I was like, wait, what? So it kicked off a whole mystery. And I wasn't the only one, because it was somebody else that approached me with it, and they were confused. And then after talking to other people, we were all very confused. So I just asked.
I get it, dude. I got 3 different aliases I go under. I mean, it's cool to have secret identities.
I mean, whatever you got to do to sleep in. I made up a whole story that they're part of a witness protection program, or
Sure.
they're on the run from the law. Or I can't no, I can't even front. They're wonderful people. But yeah, no, it's again great event. Yeah, I'm excited to go again. It's definitely much needed for myself. Very soul cleansing, and I'm excited to go back. But you know, we were there for a reason. There was a reason that this event went down. But before we get there, anything else you want to say about the weekend, Pat?
Whoop whoop.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ! I gotta send you that playlist.
You don't have to.
No, I'm going to. What?
Then I'll just feel obligated to listen to it.
You're gonna have to listen to it. Yeah.
We found out in the last stretch of we drove together 10 hours over the course of this weekend, and it was in the last hour 9 of our 10 hours on the road together, that I found out that Asher's was a juggalo back in the day, and had so many questions to ask her about the Dark Carnival, and she proselytized to me. She fucking preached.
I did.
And brought me the good word of Violent J and Shaggy Two Dope. And yeah, it was interesting. And I wanted, she promised me a playlist. I can't wait to hear it, and hopefully we get a show out of it at some point in the future. If you would want to hear us to do on Wednesday, we talk weird episode, or maybe even a Patreon episode about Insane Cloud Posse, let us know, because I would be down for it. And I don't, and you enjoy talking. Your whole person. Not that you were in a dour mood all weekend. You were in a great mood, but like, you really taking that trip down memory lane. Really,
it was fun.
Lit a fire under your ass.
It was neat. Well, I mean, there's not a lot of people that like don't really know the lore of the Juggalos. You know what I mean? A lot of people, especially in this area, like they know it.
Right.
So it was neat to revisit that, especially because it's something that I really hadn't thought about since I was like 12. But as an adult, I maybe kind of revisit sometimes, and I was saying that I'm not even allowed to listen to him anymore, just because of pure embarrassment and shame. Like,
well, reach out, listeners, reach out to us about that too, because growing up in Chicago, there were ICP was not as culturally relevant as it seems like it was for you growing up in Central Ohio. It was definite, and I think maybe with our listeners kind of being scattered about the Four Winds, maybe there's more people in my camp that for them regionally it wasn't significant either, or maybe there's a lot of people in your camp that it was a big deal, and they were really into them, and they know about the 6 Joker cards or whatever, and it's just chime in, give us some feedback, let us know how we should do the ICP thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting, because that was shocking to me, that Pat didn't really know about it, and that it wasn't really a thing in Chicago, and like,
no, definitely not. I'm not saying there was no fans, but like,
sure.
Not, yeah.
Well, clearly there was the gathering was held in Illinois for like 5 years ago.
But Peoria is not. Peoria
is in Cave in Rock.
I don't know where that's at. I never looked that up. But just based on the locations for the other ones, and the fact that it's like a camping thing, like you don't do that, or there's no venues that do that around here. Illinois is a pretty big state, so like Chicago, but if you see something in Illinois, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the vicinity of here. And just the one thing that's done in Peoria, that's like maybe it's a small to mid-sized town that's like central Illinois, almost over by Iowa, and that's kind of like that's not very metropolitan, And I think all of the gathering locations would have to be kind of rural, because that's where you're going to get the land for juggalos to gather on.
And I'd imagine,
you know what I mean, where the soil could be soak up the Fago and the fucking
and the sweat.
Oh my God, I wish I could. I don't want to see it now, because I feel like if I went now as a tourist, there would be too many ironic people there. I want to go to that in the heyday and just see what it was like.
No, I'm definitely down to go to the next gathering for sure.
Like, that's what we were saying. We should get a booth at the next gathering.
Yeah, fucking on top of it. We were looking at all the gatherings, and they have some like really fucking incredible people at these things.
Gilbert Godfrey. Fucking Ice Cube
Charlie Sheen.
two
Yeah.
years in a row. Like Ice Cube went 1 year and said, "Yeah, I'll come back," and then came back the very next year. Like,
Yep. So I mean, obviously they're doing something right.
right,
Totally down for that. But yeah, the question of the day: where are you from? And do you have juggalos there? That's
right.
the question. Their biggest fan base is going to be in Michigan because that's where they're from, Detroit, right? And so I would imagine that the surrounding states do have a following, even though Illinois is there. I mean, it sounds like maybe not quite the Chicago area, but other areas of Illinois. But yeah, that's the question. Where are you from? And are there juggalos there? Were you one? Are you still one? I don't know. What do you? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we had like a whole conversation about it. I'm gonna make Pato a playlist of ICP songs, and he's gonna listen to it because Pato's heard like 2 of their songs.
Yeah, Magnets and or no, Miracles is what it's called, but it's the fucking Magnets. How do they work song?
Yeah,
And then
everybody
Juggalo
knows
Homies.
that one. Yeah,
Juggalo
everybody
Homies.
knows that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, that like probably their 2 biggest songs that everybody knows. So I'm gonna make Pato a playlist, and he's gonna get back to us next week and tell us what he thinks because I forgot all about that. Glad you said something.
Whoop
But
whoop.
oh, Jesus.
Whoop whoop.
Anything else you want to say about the weekend, the event, the drives?
Loved hanging out with the Blue Room Insight guys.
Yeah.
Jeff Gregg's a goat, and
Yeah.
glad to not be in the mountains anymore. Oh,
That's Pato's so weird. He's
yeah.
a flat earther city townsman.
I don't know.
Trying to insult you, but it's not really working.
It's hard to, right? It's hard to find fucking shit it's hard to talk shit to me about stuff. I'm just that fucking good. Like your words fail you. The English language crumbles.
I love the mountains. It's my favorite place in the entire world is the mountains. I love it there.
Nope. Nope.
Pato does not, but that's okay. You don't live there, so I don't either. Okay, well, all I really have for the news this week was to bring up. I just wanted to bring up this fucking Dogman picture again.
Oh my god! Did that thing explode? Holy shit! That's like. That is all over the place. That is all fucking over the place now. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for it. The reason for it is because the city of Amarillo, I don't know what it is. The city where allegedly this picture was taken at the zoo, had done a press conference about it, and is seeking the public's help and trying to identify what it could be. Not necessarily trying to identify it, just they're kind of honestly, they're kind of having fun with it.
Yeah, that sounds a little fucking off. Like you're really gonna open the doors for that now? Like random internet weirdos with their fucking theories. Like,
yeah,
internet, we need your help.
I mean, and even still, like the city is coming off like, oh, this thing was spotted at our zoo, blah blah blah. But my problem with that is that there's still no confirmation from the zoo itself that said that yes, this is our picture. This is our employee that took it. This is what it looks like during the day, and this is what it looks like during the night. Like the zoo's never come forward and said, "Yeah, that's our picture." It's just that people assume that that's the zoo it came from because the guy that originally spread this thing around the internet on Reddit said that the guy who posted it originally is from this particular city, and so it could potentially be from this city zoo. But like people travel for work all the time. I don't know where the nearest zoo is or whatever. Aaron Dees from Hey Strangeness, our buddy, said that he was looking at the outside perimeter of the fence there at the zoo, and it looks the same. Well, it probably does. I mean, and probably every single zoo looks like that. So I don't know. I don't know how much there is to that. Still don't know what the fuck it is. I just think it's a person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a werewolf, not a dog man. I mean, we settled that one, but
why do you think it's a werewolf and not a dog man?
I don't know, because I don't know.
I mean, did you see it transform?
No. I don't. As much as I want it to be real, I don't think it is. Just because of it, because it seems to be like it almost looks like a teenager. Like it doesn't seem to be very tall or muscular or anything. Kind of seems like a scrawny kid. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's interesting that it blew up, and I like the fact that we covered it on our show first. I think it shows that like we're paying attention to the right stuff. And sometimes the news part of the show seems like it could be a throwaway segment where we talk about one or two things we read on the internet. But we actually do seem to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on out there, because there was something else. Oh, the sinkhole in China.
Yeah.
That story. That's one that I came up with, that I brought to the attention of that I brought to the show, and it blew up shortly thereafter. So we're kind of like two for two as far as our news segments go. That's really good. That's really encouraging to me. That we're covering the right stuff. So what?
Oh, Pat, one of these days you're going to get that. Maybe I kind of know what I'm doing and what I'm
Well,
talking about.
hey, the sinkhole story I found.
That was
Okay,
yeah,
so that's we. Let's use the royal we here. But yeah, no, I just think I just like, I don't really care about the story itself. I just like the fact that we had it first.
Sure.
That's all I give a shit about.
We'll have more,
Yeah.
It'll happen. But anyway, that's all, honestly, it's been slow otherwise. I mean, some other things came out. NASA has talked about how they're going to be looking into, UFOs or whatever. And, I don't know. I mean, there's some mysterious spikes or some shit found on Mars or something. I mean, nothing that I really thought was too newsworthy this week. So I kept it short and sweet. I just wanted to bring up the fact that this, it's dog picture or whatever the fuck it is, this person walking around at the zoo is blowing up. But I just want to, again, reiterate that there's still no proof that this came from that zoo. Still not yet. Now, by the time you listen to this, that could change. I'm not the end all be all information on all this stuff. Well, I kind of am, but, still the zoo hasn't claimed it. Until that happens, I can't even for sure say that that's where the picture came from, personally. But what's going to happen with it is probably absolutely nothing. We'll probably never figure it out unless someone comes forward and says that they hoaxed it. We'll never know. And that's the final verdict on it. And that's fine. That's a lot of this stuff, Okay, well, going back into topic, I mean, the whole reason that we were in Wytheville and doing this festival was because it was the 35th anniversary of a quote unquote flap of UFO sightings that they had in and around the city of Wytheville, Virginia. And very interesting stuff. So one of the speakers there was Danny Gordon, who was the original reporter who kind of all these sightings not really centered around, but he was the man when it came to these sightings. Danny was just a regular reporter, just a journalist, and he would every morning call the local police office and see, hey, what's happening. That's what reporters do. Until one night in 1987 when he said, oh, well, something interesting happened. 5 of our police officers were at, I think it's Fort Chiswell, and they saw a UFO. Just light in the sky, oscillating between red and green, and then it took off. And Danny decided to go ahead and run the report, just as a little filler story. It wasn't supposed to be anything intense. And that story fucking blew up. Pat, have you ever heard of Wytheville and their UFO stuff before?
No, not prior to the event. Yeah,
me neither. Actually, wasn't really familiar with it at all. And so the story completely just just got huge, and people were calling all the time, reporting this stuff to Danny, saying, "Hey, I just saw a UFO. Hey, I just saw a UFO." In a very short amount of time, there were over 1,500 sightings of UFOs in the area. I mean, it was to the point where it was happening in this one particular part of town. And you could take the family. I mean, every night people would take their families and go watch the skies, and they'd see them constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So Danny got one of his friends together, and he was like, hey, let's go catch a picture on one of these things, since we can. And they did. They gathered themselves up. They went out to the town, and, there's that area, and they were looking, and they saw the UFO, but for some reason didn't get a picture. It's not really clear why they didn't get a picture of it. But they didn't. So then they decided to go out the next night and do it again. And they did. And this time they got pictures, and it wasn't anything impressive. They're just like streaks in the sky,
mm-hmm.
But Danny, of course, thought this was huge because he had been working on this, and, it was a big old case. And so he was like, I'm going to hold a press conference about it. But the night before the press conference, he received a phone call from somebody who claimed that the CIA and federal government were interested in these UFO sightings. And then he had also received other phone calls that told him not to investigate the sightings because they had to do with the government. So, of course, Danny went ahead and went, he was just like, okay, whatever. Went ahead with his press conference. And when he came home from that press conference, he had found that his home had been ransacked. Nothing was taken, but everything was really disheveled and out of place, at least nothing he could see. So, he was kind of getting weirded out by it all. So he had contacted the Pentagon and got a hold of the defense team there. And he told them about what was going on. And they had said, and this is according to Danny, they had said that the Pentagon was aware of the sightings, but they weren't doing anything about it because they didn't think it was a threat, which actually is pretty, on point with, things that have happened up till this point with UFOs.
Sure, yeah.
They said that in Project Blue Book. They stopped investigating them and funding them because it wasn't really a threat. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are right now. Let me see here. What else happened to Mr. Danny Gordon? Tons of stuff. Oh, yeah, that's right. So one night, Danny is getting ready to travel to Virginia Beach to, give a talk about these UFO sightings, and he received another weird phone call. This time it was from allegedly a retired military intelligence officer, he said. And the officer got really weird. And before he even said anything, at the start of the conversation, he told Danny, record this conversation. Record this. Are you recording this? And Danny's like, why? Why do you want me to record it? He was like, because I want proof. And that I forewarned you that we talked about this. And, I don't want it to be on me if something happens. And he's like, okay. So the guy went on to say that he had also been investigating UFOs. And that because of his investigation, somehow the government killed his son by giving him leukemia or a virus or something associated with the leukemia, and he died.
Wow.
And he said that this was going to happen to this, was probably going to happen to Danny because the government didn't want him researching this. And, he said that this could potentially happen in the form of chemical warfare, maybe something happening to his children. And it was interesting. So Danny's like, yeah, whatever. I'm getting all these weird phone calls. Fuck you, guy. And he goes to his Virginia Beach conference or whatever. But even though he was there and he was fine, he ended up being okay. That area, the Virginia Beach area, ended up having a hepatitis epidemic.
From the water or from fucking?
I have no idea.
Oh my God.
Who knows? But Danny didn't get it. He was fine. He ended up being okay. So, there was that.
There's an old raver's tale about a foam party that was thrown in the early 2000s where about a half dozen people got herpes from the foam.
From the foam itself?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, it's an old raver's tale in Chicago. I don't know how true it is, but I remember hearing about it. And supposedly there was a huge outbreak because of a foam party. So kids, watch out for those foam parties.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And then there was an instance where Danny had he had some visitors come to his house, a couple guys in some suits, said that they were from a newspaper and they wanted to do an interview with them. And so they did. The one guy sat down and interviewed him for about 45 minutes while the other guy walked around the house and took pictures of everything. And, they were leaving. They were told him, hey, we'll send you a copy of the newspaper article when it comes out and blah, blah, blah. Well, when he never received it, he did eventually call the publication they claimed to be from. And when he did that, the people there said there was no men by that name that worked there for them.
Sure.
Nobody knew who they were. So then he had sat down to start cataloging his, because at that point there was tons of pictures people had coming in and he had his own and whatever. And he found that the negatives for his, I'm sorry, I totally skipped over this part. Danny did eventually take better UFO photographs. He was with his wife and kids. They were coming out of the mall. And when they did that, there was a sighting of this big UFO in the sky that ended up breaking apart into 4 smaller UFOs. And then those smaller UFOs would change shape and shit. And so Danny took pictures of these and, and he's got them and you can view them. They're easy to find online. But yeah, so one day he's going through his photos and he found that the negatives to those photos were missing. He has no idea where they were. He had often wondered if it was maybe possibly because there was something in the photos otherwise that maybe he didn't see or couldn't see just with the naked eye, and they needed to be analyzed more. But now you can't do that because the negatives are gone. Nobody knows. But
Mhm.
Danny, around 1990, ended up collapsing and having a heart attack due to exhaustion. Um, and it was, he believes directly related to this UFO thing because he couldn't even do his regular work. He was so bogged down with all the UFO stuff. I mean, that was all that was coming in. It was coming constantly. Um, he collapsed with a heart attack and hasn't investigated it ever since then and doesn't plan to do it ever again. As a matter of fact, while he was speaking at this event, he said this was the last event he'll ever do. He's not doing it anymore. So,
Yeah.
and the UFO sightings just kind of waned down, and they kind of stopped, and now they're not really. At least it doesn't seem to be happening like it was. You can't go to that spot and search the sky and see a UFO anymore like you could every night of the week before. So,
Definitely didn't happen when we were out there. We were
no,
there for
I didn't see any UFOs.
2 days into the wee hours of the morning, parking
Yeah,
lot drinking. What's interesting about this story, though, is that there's nothing. I mean, besides the behavior of some of the craft, it's all very terrestrial. It's all very. There's no aliens in any of this. It's just craft and government shenanigans, which I think is interesting. Um, maybe it's a hot spot. Maybe it was because they were testing aircraft in that vicinity in the mountains. Maybe there's a mountain base. Maybe there's something about that area. But you don't for that many sightings. You don't have an equal report of that many abductions or creatures spotted in the hills or wandering into town, or you know what I mean. It's just strictly flyover country for them. You know, and I think that's interesting when you have paranormal hotspots when it's one specific kind.
sure.
It's not really a whole like mess of stuff. It's just craft in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, the government eventually, said that the only thing people were seeing, because people were reporting seeing not just like one type of craft. I mean, it was all kinds of shapes and types and sizes, and some people did, allege to have seen aliens through, the glass windows of these things, and who knows if
Oh,
they could or couldn't. Yeah, some people did report that. It just depends. When you have over 1,500 reports, you're going to get this wide variety.
sure.
But the government, and that's what, Danny Gordon thought that maybe this was just a case of the government doing, military testing on different aircraft because there wasn't a nearby base and that could, potentially be something, but they never admitted to that, constantly denied it. They said what it was people were seeing were planes fueling, and that was it,
Yeah.
which
I
could look
mean,
weird.
even like the Men in Black that he saw, those Men in Black were clearly government agents. They weren't like transdimensional beings wearing fucking suits, like human
Yeah, I mean, he
suits.
spoke to him for 45 minutes. I think he would have,
Right.
noticed that something was really off.
Yeah, those don't sound like lizard people incognito. Those sound like fucking G-men, you know? That's what I mean. This whole thing, I'm not saying that I doubt it or doubt anybody's story, but it's got a very terrestrial kind of classic UFO government cover-up feel to it. It doesn't feel like there's dragon lines involved or portal. It's not like Skinwalker Ranch type shit. You know what I mean? It's just it was a UFO flap, and a lot of people were seeing a lot of shit, and the government tried to keep it quiet a little bit, but they weren't willing to kill a reporter over it. So they might have fucked with them a little bit, and then the shit died down.
I mean, I don't know. It certainly could have been, alien. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
Th- one thing that maybe we should talk about one of these times and do a show about is the SETI satellite in West Virginia. And I don't know if you know much about SETI, but I will enlighten you and the listeners. SETI is a project that was put in place by oh my god, Carl Sagan and somebody else. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm kicking myself. It doesn't matter. The whole point of it was to make contact with aliens,
Mm-hmm.
and the SETI program's still around. And there are two SETI satellites, two big SETI satellites, one placed in West Virginia, the other one I believe is in California. And the West Virginia one, I believe, is still there. I think we've like talked about it. I think it was damaged recently, and they were talking about not having it around anymore or something. Anyway, so when we were driving down to Wytheville, most of our drive was just straight through to West Virginia. And then when we got to Virginia, I mean, it was probably an hour and we were where we needed to go, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's all right there, with each other. And the SETI satellite, I believe, is probably within a 2 hour distance from that area.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's very possible that maybe those two things are connected. Maybe they're not, you know. Maybe they did finally make contact with something. That something was curious. It was kind of checking us out, and then it left. I don't personally believe in UFO flaps. I don't think that's real.
Well, I think if you think that this stuff is location based because of energy or portals or something tied to the land itself, then no, flaps wouldn't make sense because the land doesn't go anywhere. You know what
Right.
I mean? The land is always there, so it would make sense that this stuff happened as early as history is recorded. There should have been sightings and there should have been evidence of this stuff. When you have something that just kind of appears over the course of 6 months and then kind of immediately stops, that tends to lend itself to more of a man-made explanation, right? That's why it was temporary, is because we were testing aircraft in that area. The press got a hold of it. It got too hot. There was too many pictures, and we decided to move the operation somewhere else because this was only going to grow from here. You know, that's the way I look at it. People might not agree with me, but that's my hot take.
Sure. And I mean, I like I said, I personally I don't buy into the idea of flaps. I see people, especially newer people when they get into investigating this stuff, they're like, "Oh man, the 1960s were a really weird time. There's all this stuff going on." Right? And I used to think that too. I used to think that. As a matter of fact, my original theory for what all this was that I believed that if you had built a timeline from Roswell until now, that the Roswell ship that crashed, it had contained, possibly that ship was from a extraterrestrial project where maybe they were going around collecting DNA from different planets and different creatures, who knows why. And then when it crashed, it had all these DNA samples. And when we picked up that Roswell crash stuff and we took it back, that's what we learned it was. And then we started reverse engineering DNA and then dropping off these creatures in super remote areas that nobody was really going to and seeing how they did. That's why you had the Mothman in the TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, because nobody's going to believe a bunch of fucking hilljacks anyway, and the government already owned that land. That was my theory, and I have since found out that that's just not the case. I don't believe that that's like, because Mothman's always been here, and that's what I found out since then. Just like I found out that it wasn't just the 1960s that was weird. It's everywhere. It's the 1950s and the 40s and 30s. These things have always been around, always. And I think that it just depends on if you have somebody at that point in time who is willing to investigate this stuff. So you had somebody, people finally had someone to go to tell their sighting to. They had Danny Gordon.
Right, right. I think you make an excellent point, and this story is an excellent example of proving your point right. Is that when he reported it started with those officers at the fort seeing something, and the sheriff telling the reporter about it in the morning. Now that sheriff didn't call the reporter. The reporter happened to call the sheriff, and that's how the story got out. And once that story got out and got published in the press, then that started a snowball of everybody else in the area reporting their own sightings, talking about things they had already seen. Those sightings were going on before that day, before those cops came forward, when
Right.
their story got out. And it's not even like they came forward like they were whistleblowers. It just happened to be the information flowed from one source to the next. But there was still other stuff in the area where people were seeing stuff. And Danny was a native of that area. So it's not like he was some out of town guy that had just moved in town. He had lived there. He had never seen anything or known anything about it, or given any great thought, even though there were still people in that area that were seeing stuff semi regularly. You know what I mean? So that's what you're saying about flaps, is that I think suddenly the spotlight will get shown on a community or a part of the country, or and then that, like, I remember there being a big Florida thing in the 80s or early 90s. That was the first flap that I remember. And it was all over sightings and unsolved mysteries, and they were talking about it constantly. And, you know, it was there for a little while and goes away. But now, I mean, knowing what we know about uh, the unidentified submersible objects and stuff, like, that wasn't necessarily particular to that time or area. That those are reported fairly regularly, and a lot of
Right.
the UAP footage all came from the Navy.
Right.
The stuff that kind of led to this current round of disclosure came from the Navy, came from USOs, you know. So yeah, it's the whole flap thing is kind of relative. It's just when you wanna limit your search query to. You know what I
Right.
mean? When's the beginning
Right.
date? When's the end date? But on
And
a
I
lot.
mean, it's easy to do. I mean, and we can look at that, with anything. I mean, when you look at the Mothman stuff, well, the reason why it was reported so heavily around that time is because John Keel was there investigating it. Like, that's why. And they had somebody to go to. And, and I think that, the amount of people that don't come forward with their stories, because listen, let me ask you something. If you see something, who do you report it to? Do you know who to report it to? We've talked about this before. Do you know who you're going to call? Especially in this day and age when there's so many of us working on this and the age of the internet. And, you could report it to me, or you can report it to, our good friend Tobias Whalen, or you can report. There's so many people that you can report these things to. Now, there's not a really good database for this stuff. And there never has been, and that's been the problem, especially
Right.
back before you had the internet. So then you had these isolated researchers, going out. You had Charles Fort going out by himself, and nobody knows who the fuck that is even now. Unless you're really weird, then you know who it is. So it's you just get these people that happen to kind of start, picking up some steam in maybe a certain area, and then you got all these people that report this one thing to them, and it's not necessarily that it dies. It's just that it becomes not so popular anymore. Just like we see every single day in media and social media trends. It's not trendy anymore. So then it kind of dies down, and then the information gets lost on where you even report that shit to. So you never do. Maybe you talk about that UFO that you saw in passing with your friends one night when you're outside a hotel parking lot drinking beers or whatever, but I don't believe in the concept of flaps. I think that these things do happen demographically. I think they do happen in certain areas more so than other areas, but I don't believe that they happen within a particular time period.
I think when it comes to, I think we have very incomplete data, and I could say this about a lot of different things. And we don't, like you said, no one's keeping accurate records here. And so how can you claim to use data to really discern anything, because the data that you have is incomplete?
Right.
So same thing goes with UFO flaps to fucking the early history of mankind. There's so many things. We really didn't start recording this shit with any great accuracy until the past 100 years. And
Right.
even
Exactly.
then things vary.
Right.
you know and I always think about that whenever they do, like, talk about temperatures or something, like the weather. Like, how long do you think we've really been recording the weather on this fucking planet? And I know people say, well, the Egyptians kept records of, okay, yeah, but what's that? That's a picture that means that it fucking rained that year. Like, that's not really accurate. Not like we do now, where we can look at, like, historical, and this isn't not a climate change denier or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like science still ain't a science exactly. We've only really been recording things with any great accuracy in the past 50 to 100 years, and that's even kind of debatable. So
Right. I agree. No, I agree. And that's why I push, like, I want people to have specialties in this field. I think that that's a really good idea. Nobody's an expert on anything when it comes to the unexplained, but I think that you should specialize in certain things, because it's going to make it easier for you as an investigator, as a researcher, to compile the information, because your mind isn't all over the place trying to investigate everything, right? Your specialty is that one thing. And so therefore you're going to have the most information, and then I think that then it's easier for us to then carry that information with us through time, and then also share it with each other.
right.
I'm a big believer in that. So if there are things that I receive, certain reports that I receive, and I don't particularly feel like I specialize in that thing, I'll send it over to somebody else. Doesn't mean that I won't take reports and investigate those things also, because I will, but I want that person who, I want that person who's that person to have that information. I want them to be a Danny Gordon, because I think that that's kind of the best way to go about it. And then, of course, solidify your role in the field. But then, of course, that's my pipe dream, and it takes all of us to work together to do that. And I still think there's a lot of us that aren't on the same page there, even.
But
Um,
even then, the most that he could claim is to be an expert from one town that's 10 miles away from Chicago,
sure,
that during the period of when he started looking and when he stopped looking.
sure.
And there's a whole sea of data conceivably from before when he started and after when he stopped. And, it's like, that's what I mean. There's not, it takes 1,000 monkeys at typewriters in a room to like come up with anything. One guy kind of studying one little piece of the puzzle over here and another chick studying another little piece of the puzzle over there. They're never going to come up with any kind of definitive picture. And that's probably why it's been all these years and we still don't really know what's going on, is because there has not been coherent research. And I mean, or cohesive research. And maybe that's why the government shows up and tries to steal evidence and stuff. Like when they stole those negatives, maybe they did that to destroy them and destroy proof, or maybe they stole negatives because they needed it for themselves. When the men in black show up and someone finds physical evidence of something and they take it, or they is it to destroy it, or is it because no, they're trying to do their own investigation here?
Right.
You know?
Right, which is great. I mean, well, and like I said, yeah, the only way to do that is to then have those little people studying their little things. Because again, Danny Gordon was studying this one, you're right, this one tiny piece of the puzzle, and it brought the man to a heart attack. That's how
Right.
overwhelming this shit is. It is. It's very overwhelming. And, but then, he needs to take that research and then share it with somebody else. And then we need teams. We need teams of people to do this. And we need those people to be on the same page. But the more cooks that you get in the kitchen, the worse that the stew ends up, right? I mean, then you kind of got a pot of everything and it's still not really going anywhere. But you need everybody on the same page. And, at minimum, am I going to see stuff like that in my lifetime? I already have people that I work with things personally, but we're still a very small group compared to the big picture. But I would hope that by the time I die, people kind of start to understand that you have to work together, stop hating each other and being mad at each other because you have one opinion and they have another on what these things are. I mean, that's just stupid anyway, but and it just shows that we still haven't really come that far, this far yet, because we're still fucking fighting over the internet about if werewolves and dogmen are the same or whatever,
Right.
they're different, and, while it's okay to have your opinion and of course share why you think the way you do, and for that person that you shared it with to disagree with you or whatever, I mean, it's got to start and stop there. You got to be mature enough to go, you know what, you got to remember why you do it, and the reason why you're doing it is because you want the truth, and if that's what you want, then you need to put that petty shit aside and work with each other, and that's just the only way we're going to get anywhere, and until that happens, we'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this guy was lucky enough to have this kind of be his job. Like, I think this was one of the rare instances where he was probably actually being paid to be a UFO researcher, because he just had happened to dovetail on what he was doing for a living anyway.
Yeah,
Most people don't have that luxury. It's something they do on the
sure.
side, and it's something they kind of pick up and put down. This guy was in a position where it could kind of take over his life, and it did, and it ruined it, and now he's done talking about it forever.
Yeah,
You know, um, and I think it's. I mean, it's not. I think when you get to the nuts and bolts of the case, it's a little depressing,
sure.
because it kind of like it doesn't bode well for the other people in the field
Yeah,
that kind of do this. But I think it also, just tying it back to the event, and a great point that you brought up earlier from the event, and something we've talked about on the way home, is like, different people. We're all kind of interested in this stuff, and I'll use the word stuff because it's a great nondescript word, but
sure.
we're all interested in this stuff, but we all come to this stuff to do different things. Some people come to this stuff because they want to create artwork. And like you said, those people have a very different agenda when they go to these conventions. Um, you say it all the time. You're not a paranormal, you're not a podcaster, you're an investigator. and I am not an investigator. I'm a podcaster, you
Sure.
know, and so our collaboration works well together. We create good content, but it's you kind of do your thing and I kind of do mine.
We have
And
different goals, right? We talked about that too.
yeah, and I think this just shows, and I think this phenomenon is not necessarily it's not like the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon. This I think has a more there's more terrestrial explanation to it. I'm not saying that it couldn't be craft from outer space or from the future, from another dimension or something like that. But I think that, there's a very heavy government involvement to aspect to this story, you know. Um, there's more of a government presence here than there was Skinwalker Ranch. That was just cattle barons and reality TV show personalities.
Sure.
This is reporters and men in black and stuff like that. So
Before I forget to mention it, gosh, it's a very important piece to this. I was really excited to talk about, because when I do these episodes, other people, especially this week, are doing this case because of the event,
sure.
right? And I kind of talk about, like, when we do something, whenever we do a topic that's been done to death, I like to add something new, and this is that something new and fresh that nobody talks about. At the brewery, people came to the after party that had attended the event, not vended the event, but attended the event.
Right.
And I got to hear what the townspeople were saying. The townspeople loved that we were doing this. We're absolutely in love with the idea because they didn't have things like this there. And, I kind of asked them, like, well, what's the word on the street? Did you guys grow up hearing these stories? I mean, what do you guys talk about here? And, they were saying, well, yeah, the one guy was saying that, when we grew up, we all just thought Danny Gordon was nuts. I mean, everybody made fun of him, and this wasn't like somebody that just kind of heard about it. Like, this guy went to school with and was classmates with Danny Gordon's daughter. His best friend ended up marrying her, and he name dropped her by first name, told me where she works, all this and that. And, but the talk of the town was that he was just crazy. And, and he was saying that he felt bad because after listening to him talk and, kind of getting wrapped up into the community and stuff like that, he kind of realized, well, maybe there was something to this, and that's, I mean, that was a really interesting perspective to get of the townspeople. When it comes to Danny Gordon and what he experienced, I think 1000% it was genuine. I think he saw those lights in the sky. I think that he got those reports all the time. And I think those people saw that shit too. I just don't think that it doesn't matter now. It happened. It's a thing that happened and it's not happening now. So there's really nothing to investigate any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter where it happened in the time period? Sure, I guess we could catalog that and put it down just in case we need it somewhere. But I don't think necessarily even knowing about it is going to do anything for us. Again, unless the government comes out and goes, yeah, that was us. We were testing military craft. Or, unless the aliens come down and go, yeah, that was us. We were just checking you guys out. We just won't know. But I do think that it's genuine. I think it did happen. Can't tell you if it was alien craft or not. Could have been military. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was born in 91. So.
Well, I was born in 81 and 100.
Still don't know.
Yeah. Good 500, 600 miles away.
Sure. Sure. I mean, it's an interesting story. Again, I'm definitely looking forward to attending the event again. I think it was a great time and with great people and a great energy.
Right.
But I don't think we'll see lights in the sky over there anytime soon.
Yeah.
But if you do, and if you're in Wytheville or around that area and you see them, call us and tell us about it. 773-59-WEIRD.
That's 773-59-WEIRD.
Pato, anything else before you got to go take cover?
Whoop, whoop.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.